Catherine the Great, Empress of the People, was the Russian Empire's longest ruling female leader. She was mother to Russia's golden age, but she was also responsible for quite a lot of bloodshed, and she even found herself in the midst of some of the juiciest intrigues of her time. Today we'll take a look at her tumultuous life, but more importantly, we'll answer the question, what would Catherine the Great have eaten at her legendary feasts? Hey guys, my name is Andong and I would like to welcome you to the very first episode of CuriosityStream's new show where we try to cook up a feast for some of history's most iconic figures and then we eat like them. In order to recreate a feast Catherine the Great would have eaten herself back in the day, I first had to learn about the person. Who is she, where is she from, and what made her so great? As the Empress of the Russian Empire, she would have spent most of her life in St. Petersburg, the capital of the late Russian Empire and home of the Tsars. It is actually also my hometown, at least I was born there, so under normal circumstances, we totally would have gone there and got our historical context straight from the source. Unfortunately though, right now traveling to Russia is still not really an option, but we had a pretty sweet plan B lined up. Instead of going to Russia, we started our adventure somewhere else, but only about 150 kilometers away from our home base, Berlin. We went to a city called Szczecin in northwestern Poland, in a region called Pomerania, which unbeknownst to most is also Catherine the Great's birthplace. We actually went and saw the exact location she was born in, which was actually destroyed during World War II, but there is a new building with a plaque indicating that this was indeed her birthplace. Right next to it though, there's the Pomeranian Duke's castle, where she actually grew up with her father being the governor of Szczecin. It was really cool to see the bell tower that was mentioned in her memoirs and even walk the same grounds as her. To our delight, today the castle houses a nice museum, an opera, outdoor festivals, galleries, and many more cultural activities. The folks working there were kind enough to give us a tour of the space, and we think it's totally worth visiting not just this castle, but this historical and pretty city itself, in spite of not really having many displays of Catherine the Great's heritage around. We were actually told that folks in Poland don't think very fondly of her because of what she did to them during her reign as empress later. However, they do acknowledge her origins. The trip did give us some much needed historical context though, so in order to be even more immersed in this project and to dine like true Pomeranian or Russian royalty, we managed to get our hands on this place, which is called Castle Wartin. It's only about half an hour away from Szczecin and it was built in 1695, which means this place predates Catherine the Great herself. Cavalry captains, military men, baroque lords, academics, poets, and their servants, of course. A lot of people used to live in this castle. And you know what? Chances are that quite a few of them got to hang out with Catherine the Great before she moved to Russia to become empress and all of that. And to make the absolute most out of this place, we got a little surprise for you. Let me show you. All right. Okay, so this is the actual surprise. We got period-appropriate costumes. For me, the Pomeranian Duke. For Grace, the Pomeranian Dame. Enjoy. And for you, the Joker.
Thank you.
All right, let's get dressed and shoot something epic.
So?
Okay, before we start cooking and talking history, there's one thing you gotta know. Catherine the Great was actually a pretty healthy eater. You wanna know what one of her favorite drinks was? Let me show you. These are black currants, a very popular berry in Russia. Catherine would put those in a glass, then she'd just mash them up like this, and then she'd simply add some water. I'm doing sparkling water because A, I love sparkling water, and B, I know for a fact that the Russian imperial court did indeed drink sparkling water. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of chewing my drinks, but it does taste pretty good. Kind of just like a fruit-infused sparkling water, so I guess not everything changes over time. So this is the kind of wholesome drink Catherine would have consumed alongside a very minimal and, health-focused diet. But she would also throw these huge, lavish feasts. And that's what we're trying to recreate today. Not her everyday food, but her special occasion-style food. Every serious Russian meal starts with an appetizer. And also, Russian people are pretty obsessed with caviar, which is why we decided to start this meal with mini buckwheat and potato pancakes garnished with horseradish sour cream and an exquisite variety of caviars. I am a big fan of caviar. Do you guys like caviar normally?
On sushi.
Yeah, on sushi, of course.
On sushi. Cheers, guys. Let's try this. This is the first time I'm eating a potato pancake, and it's delicious. Did we decide that we're just eating these like tacos?
Yes.
Ancient Russian tacos? Let's go. Mmm.
So fresh.
You get like little bursts of caviar flavor. Catherine the Great was born in 1729 as Princess Sophie Friederike Auguste von Anhalt-Zerbst-Dornburg. She was a tomboy, mastered sword fighting, she was bright, charming, inquisitive. But according to her mother, who was described by others to be nasty and self-interested, Sophie was useless, ugly, and arrogant. Sophie's family was actually pretty poor considering their circumstances, which for her mom was an unbearable shame. She became obsessed with grooming Sophie to become the wife of some powerful royalty. You gotta understand, the political system of the time was highly competitive, and arranged marriages were an ensured way to gain power and, of course, wealth. And so Sophie was sent traveling all over Europe to visit families of higher royal standing, which is actually where she slowly started to learn how to navigate this crazy world of aristocracy. A skill that would later become key to her success as Empress of Russia. We'll get to all of that in just 1 second, but first, let's actually prepare our first course. Even more important than the appetizer is the first course in a Russian meal, and that first course is always gonna be soup. One of the most famous soups in all of Russia is called ukha, a fish soup, but that is the food of the common people. It's not exactly what people at the imperial court, the tsars, would eat, except if you really zhuzh it up. For example, by adding champagne. Oh, there he is. Ooh, it's champagne soup. So Grace, you don't really do champagne, right?
No, I'm allergic to alcohol.
Oh no.
So,
sad life.
sad life.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ding.
Champagne soup, let's go. This was super easy to cook, but I can't say it's exquisite. It's just extra. Yeah, it's champagne mixed with fish stock, and I'm not sure I like it. Fish soup, yes. Champagne, yes. Champagne fish soup, no. The year is 1733. Sophie is 14 years old and she hits the jackpot. She gets chosen to be the wife of Karl Ulrich, more famously known as Peter III of Russia, the man himself, grandson to Peter the Great. She diligently begins to learn everything about the country. Russian language, Russian politics and culture. She even converts to Russian Orthodox Christianity and begins bearing the name Yekaterina, or in English, Catherine. Her man, though, Peter III, turns out not to be a great husband, nor a great ruler, nor even a great guy. He routinely disrespected her in court, he had affairs, and he developed a drinking problem as early as in his childhood. He almost threw Russia into complete chaos because he was actually a pro-Prussia enthusiast with a P, big difference, and his own country, Russia, he actually hated that with all of his heart. Catherine plotted to overthrow him, but she had to act quickly because he actually found out about her plans. With the country's most powerful military and nobility support, she managed to arrest her husband and had him abdicated. Shortly after, he died in confinement under mysterious circumstances. Some say Catherine's secret lover killed him under the darkness of the night. Nobody knows for sure, but what we do know for sure is that Catherine gets crowned in September 1762, with Peter's death looming over her reign. Yet, for the following 34 years, she was empress with perseverance and ambition. But before we talk about that, let's move to our next course. For more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel right now and look for CuriosityStream on social media. Links in the description. Have you ever heard of chicken Kiev, the dish that is essentially fried chicken stuffed with garlic and herb butter? Well, Kiev is the capital of Ukraine today, but it is also a super important city in Russian imperial history. While chicken Kiev is not really from Kiev, probably, it is still a dish that was indeed eaten at the Russian imperial court. That we know for sure, and that is exactly why we have chosen it to be the second dish in our feast today.
Le chicken.
Chicken extraordinaire. Oh, I'm down for the chicken. We kind of screwed up the first one. We just deep fried the chicken, and when we took it out, it was still half raw. Appreciate the crispiness. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Oh.
It's fried chicken filled with garlic butter. What do you think? What do you think?
Actually, the herbs kind of like sweetens it a little bit, and then the mashed potato is like a neutral bed that's like keeps it going.
Butter, garlic, chicken. I love everything. Okay, thank you, bye-bye.
Catherine was a very fierce and ambitious empress. During her rule, she achieved major breakthroughs in education, political administration, culture, healthcare. She made Russia a key player in international politics and even alleviated serfdom. In the culture scene, she accumulated an unbelievable variety of artwork, literature and jewels, which eventually started today's epic Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. Russians were encouraged to import and study the classical works of the great European thinkers, which sparked an early wave of Russian enlightenment. She also extended Russian territory southward and westward, adding Crimea, big chunks of Poland, and more. She even vaccinated a majority of the country against smallpox. That was something that was unheard of at the time, and she even started with herself and her child to set an example for the rest of the country. She gave serfs the right to win freedom from landowners and be released from slave-like conditions. Sounds pretty good, right? But not everyone was into Catherine's progressive spirit. As time went on, opposition grew and conflicts started appearing on the horizon. We'll talk a little more about that after our next course. As we were doing research for this video, we actually found record of what was probably Catherine the Great's favorite dish. It's beef with pickles inside a pastry crust. I'm not really surprised because her home region of Pomerania is home to some of the world's freshest and best cucumbers and of course pickles. The dish itself is kind of like a proto-beef Wellington, which wasn't even invented at that time, but that is exactly why we thought, hey, probably Catherine the Great would have loved the beef Picklington. And that is our third course. Well, I can tell you that I can easily cut this with a butter knife. It's like weird French cuisine where it's like a steak wrapped in things and baked in puff pastry, you know, French cuisine. And there are so many elements to this dish. It is insane. Cheers, guys. Cheers.
Wow, actually my favorite part is the pickle.
I can see why Catherine the Great liked pickles and beef. What a great combo. Whoa.
More.
Whoa. Thank you, Catherine the Great, for teaching us to eat beef with pickles. As good as Catherine's intentions might have been, there was one very big problem. She severely underestimated the convoluted and bureaucratic Russian political system. Her expansions of the country's borders resulted in many costly wars, some of them with little to no financial gain. The serfs she helped to set free were not actually accepted as full, free citizens by many local governments, which led to a new kind of oppression and suffering for them, which in turn led to major unrest and revolts. And it was those scary revolts that made Catherine realize how dependent she actually was on the support of the noble class. To stay in their good graces, she gave them even more power over their lands, which unfortunately only resulted in even more oppression and cruelty. So by the end of her reign, even though she tried really hard, she did not achieve her dream of an enlightened Russian rule. In fact, it was because of her decisions that many died in their struggle for freedom or in wars. And in the face of the bloody French Revolution, towards the end of her rule, Catherine ended up distancing herself from the Enlightenment ideologies she once professed her love for. Every epic meal needs an epic conclusion, which is of course dessert. The favorite dessert of the Tsars was something called pastila, a traditional Russian dish made from dehydrated apples or berries, which takes a long time to make, even though it's delicious. So we decided to cook something else that takes a long time to cook, and that is Pavlova. It's a very different dish. Even though it sounds Russian, it's actually not from there at all. You can look up that history some other time, but we thought it was still something that Catherine the Great would have loved, which is why we decided to make a pastila-inspired Pavlova for dessert. Cheers, guys. Let's try this.
Whoa, that texture.
This is surprisingly good. And you know what? I think the apple really hits the spot here. This is very surprisingly delicious.
Whoa.
I think we would have made Catherine the Great proud. Not every single one was delicious. I'm looking at you, champagne soup. But every single one was very unique. Catherine the Great died in 1796 due to a stroke. I think she left behind a legacy of amazing personal and diplomatic success. It was her, after all, who modernized Russia and freed it from the reputation of being a backwards country. Many of the cultural and physical gems you find in Russia today are there thanks to Catherine the Great. Unfortunately, in a male-dominated world, she was often attacked in court by malicious gossip about her love life and capabilities in order to discredit her authority. I think it's important to acknowledge how tirelessly she worked and that she valued ideals that were quite ahead of her time. Russia is huge, and Catherine did not have all the technologies that we have today, and yet she managed to put Russia on the map as a powerhouse, which in my opinion makes her one of the most legendary historical figures to have ever lived. I hope you learned something today. Don't forget to try some of those delicious dishes that Catherine might have enjoyed herself back in the day, and stay tuned for the next episode where we learn about and eat like another legend. For more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel right now and look for CuriosityStream on social media. Links in the description.